Okay, speaking of things going away, this next story I don't think is going away anytime soon. If you have not heard, Pramila Jayapal, within the span of 24 hours, was attacked on both sides of the aisle because of a statement that she made in reference to the conflict with Israel and Palestine. Now, for those who are not aware, there was an event that Pramila Jayapal was speaking at, and there were protesters that showed up to that event saying free Palestine, support the Palestinian people. Now, we've talked about this multiple times before. I told you guys I support BDS. I'm not against the BDS movement. I think we do need to support the Palestinian people, and I think they're being treated terribly right now. And you talk to people who have been over there that have done reporting, and they'll tell you the things that they've seen, or they've recorded some of the footage that they've seen. It's horrible right now. So she was confronted at this event, and she was on the panel, and she issued a statement, and I want you to hear what she said, because this is the statement that made everybody try to bite her head off.
I'll just leave. Maybe I should just walk off.
Guys, can I say something? Can I say something as somebody that's been in the streets and has participated in a lot of demonstrations? I want you to know that we have been fighting to make it clear that Israel is a racist state, that the Palestinian people deserve self-determination and autonomy, that the dream of a two-state solution is slipping away from us, that it does not even feel possible. It does not even feel possible. And I want you to know that while you may have arguments with whether or not some of us on stage are fighting hard enough, I do want you to know that there is an organized opposition on the other side, and it isn't the people that are on this stage.
I'll just leave.
Okay, so that was the remark that she made that sent everybody in a tizzy, and basically they're like off with her head type of situation. If you haven't had a chance to answer that poll, now would be a good time to do so. Do you feel she should have retracted her statement? She should retract what she said there? Because as you probably can imagine, that's exactly what happened. She made that statement. Just about every representative that I saw in the House and the Democratic Party came after her publicly on Twitter. Even people who are not politicians came after her publicly as well. And she decided to retract that statement. Now, I want to give a shout out here to Case Study QB. Here is Pramila Jayapal walking that statement back. Oh, and by the way, when she walked the statement back, she got attacked again for walking it back. Here we go.
Democratic Congresswoman and chair of the Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal, is walking back her words this morning. Here is what started it all at a Netroots conference this weekend. Listen.
We have been fighting to make it clear that Israel is a racist state, that the Palestinian people deserve self-determination and autonomy.
Jayapal there was responding to pro-Palestinian protesters who showed up at the event on Saturday. By Sunday, Jayapal was trying to clean it up, saying this in part: words do matter, and so it is important that I clarify my statement. I do not believe the idea of Israel as a nation is racist.
Let's pause here. Okie doke. So for the people who are Palestinian activists, they saw this retraction from Pramila Jayapal, and the first thing they said is, "You damn sellout." Some people saw this and they said, "How dare you? Oh, now all of a sudden you don't believe?" Let me tell you what happened. She made that statement. She got pressure and pushback from Democrat Party leadership. We've seen this happen multiple times over other issues and different politicians there in DC. So she received that pushback and she issued a retraction. This isn't the first time she's done this. When she was the one that decided to write that letter, or they wrote that letter, the Progressive Caucus, in reference to some type of diplomacy with Russia and Ukraine. and then people freaked out. And so the letter was pulled back. She was the one who pulled it back. And we know that because Ro Khanna went on to interviews right after that and said, I thought the letter was fine. I didn't pull it back. She should not have done that. Oh, Ro Khanna sell you out in a minute, boo. He will sell you out in a minute. And he was one of the ones, too, that said on Twitter, I do not agree with her statement. He will sell you out quickly. So now you say that you were fighting that fight when she was on the stage. She said she was fighting that fight. She's one of the people that's in the streets. Now, I don't live in Seattle. If you live in Seattle, let me know. Have you seen her in the streets? I don't know. But she said she's been fighting that fight. So if you were fighting that fight in reference to the way that the Palestinians are being treated, then why would you come back and say that now you don't believe that Israel as a nation is right? What? Let's continue.
The controversy comes just days before the Israeli president is scheduled to address a joint meeting of Congress, and some progressives have already said that they will be skipping that. Joining me right now to talk about this is Democratic Congressman Brad Schneider from Illinois. Congressman, thank you for coming in. The Congresswoman, I just read part of her statement in which she was trying to clear up and clean up what she said on Saturday. Is that cleanup and clarification, is it enough for you?
I think I spoke to her several times yesterday. I think she understands that she misspoke. Israel's not a racist state. She doesn't believe it is. She has said that, and I expect she'll clarify that even more. At the same time, we've had leadership of the Democratic Party chime in and make clear that as a party, we support Israel. Israel is our strongest ally in the world, or certainly in the Middle East, one of our strongest in the world, and the relationship is ironclad.
You've signed on to a letter we could describe it as a group of Democratic members, Jewish members, more moderate members, signed on to a letter kind of speaking out about her remarks. At the end of the letter that I have seen, it reads this, just to read it for everyone, Congressman: we will never allow anti-Zionist voices that embolden anti-Semitism to hijack the Democratic Party and country. Is that what you see Congresswoman Jayapal doing with these remarks? Do her comments work to hijack the Democratic Party?
Hold on to that. We're going to go to part 2 of this video about hijacking the Democratic Party, because what you saw happen here, all this does is reiterate my point that you cannot reform the Democratic Party, because you see what happens. You see what happens, right? So watch this part 2, because he's going to answer that question. Again, shout out to
Kesheev. On both sides of I think as we crafted the letter, what we were saying is the groups on both sides of the political spectrum who are trying to create wedges and divide, in this case, divide the Democratic Party. The folks you heard chanting, making it impossible for Jan Schakowsky to speak on Saturday, they have a clear intent to demonize Israel, to try to create a wedge and bring the Democratic Party to a position that just doesn't reflect the realities of the U.S. Israel relationship, or where the Democratic Party is supporting that relationship. We have broad bipartisan support for Israel, not just in the Democratic Party, but across Congress.
That's very true. The Israeli president, as I mentioned, is coming to Washington. He's going to be speaking to Congress on Wednesday. Ahead of that, some fellow Democrats, some progressives have said that they're going to be boycotting the speech over their objections to moves being made by the Netanyahu government. Is that the right move? Do you see that as the right approach to register their objections?
No.
So the president is coming, right? Israeli president is coming tomorrow, actually. And we'll get into this as well. Some of the squad members, not all, but some of the squad members have said that they are not going to attend that event in an effort to boycott, so to speak. Let's continue.
I see it as exactly the wrong approach. Look, President Herzog has been outspoken in trying to address the issues Israel faces, including trying to find compromise across parties within Israel on the judicial reform. He has advocated for looking for pathways to reach out and create a platform to restart negotiations with the Palestinians, looking for a partner with the Palestinians. Simple fact is there is no partner on the Palestinian side to try to begin to have conversations. But what we're seeing around the region is the Abraham Accords are taking hold. Israel is developing close relations with countries around the region. And my hope is the Palestinians will find it within their leadership to join the talks and join the progress being made in the entire region.
So, as you can imagine, I have some things to say. Because the way that this all played out within 24 hours, and I'm not kidding, the number of people who did not come to her defense, who went against her, these are her colleagues, these are her peers, these are her coworkers. Like, she works with them all the time. And the way that they just came out and said, no, she shouldn't say this, she shouldn't say that, on both sides, by the way, it just goes to show you again that you cannot go against the Democratic Party. You can't go against the status quo once you are one of them. Pramila Jayapal walked that statement back because she wants to keep her seat. That's what this is really about. And that's why I told you before, people get mad when I say it, but whatever. The idea of Justice Democrats, logically, it does not work because of this reason. Now, she had an interview with Seattle Times where she responded. Pramila Jayapal says blowback from calling Israel racist state reveals double standard. So I want to get to the part. There's one piece I want to show here. Actually, I'm going to make this bigger because it's very tiny. Hakeem Jeffries. Of course, he was one of the ones that spoke out against her. You guys know how Hakeem Jeffrey is. It says a bipartisan furor over Jayapal's comments erupted, with House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries and other top Democrats issuing a statement that did not directly name Jayapal, but begin with Israel is not a racist state. In the interview Monday, Jayapal said she'd been surprised to see that line leading Jeffries' statement. In my conversations with him, that statement was not going to start with that line. They did not intend this to be a condemnation of me. A Jeffrey spokesperson, Christy Stevenson, in an interview said the statement was made in response to Jayapal's comments, yet was not designed to target any one particular member. Bullshit. It was responding to her comments. Give me a break. They're doing that because they don't want people to feel that there's any type of division between people in the party. It goes on to say 43 House Democrats, including 3 members of Washington's congressional delegation, put out another statement Monday repudiating Jayapal's comments as unacceptable while adding that they appreciated her retraction. So again, tell me how it wasn't personal, wasn't targeted towards her then. We'll go down here. These are all the people that said things. Like there was just so much that was thrown out. Jayapal's comments also drew a rebuke Monday from the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle. See what I was saying about her wanting to maintain and keep that seat? Because she knows before you know it, it'll be time for her to run for re-election again. If she want to keep that seat, she's going to have to appease all these organizations and people that supported her prior. Let's go on here. In the interview, Jayapal noted her comments at Netroots Nation event came as she tried to defend fellow Representative Jan, who's Democrat from Illinois, who had unsuccessfully tried to assure chanting protesters who interrupted the event that she too is a vocal critic of Israel's treatment of Palestinians. Don't go after your allies, she pleaded, to little apparent effect. She then mused out loud, maybe I should just walk off the stage, and turned around. Jayapal stood and tried to defuse the situation as some protesters could be heard chanting that Israel is a racist state. And then that's when she makes her statement there. In the interview, as she did in her written clarification, Jayapal doubled down on criticizing Netanyahu, saying, I do believe that the Netanyahu government has racists in the government and is furthering racist policy. She pointed to the expansion of Jewish settlements in the West Bank and cited President Joe Biden and others who have denounced Netanyahu's administration as historically extremist. Jayapal said, as a longtime activist and organizer, she is sensitive to the harm that can be inflicted by public statements. So the Netanyahu issue, I mean, this isn't new. Like we all know about this. And I've said this before, it's really easy for Democrats in DC to criticize right-wing people in this country, but they have a very difficult time doing so when it comes to Israel, criticizing the right-wing extremists that Netanyahu has built. And then these are just some of the things that you just got to pay attention to. And I pay attention to those things. And there's one more part here that I wanted to bring up as well. I want to make sure I show the piece here where she came in and said this part right here. But Jayapal said she also feels for Muslims and Palestinians who feel like they're being treated as if they don't have a right to exist and are being treated like second-class citizens. She said the criticism, even after her clarification, seems actually directed towards stifling any legit criticisms of Netanyahu's government and its policies. Here's the part some people were like, what? Jayapal said the heated response to progressives who criticize Israel's amounts to a double standard compared with more muted reaction to Democrats who have voted for abortion bans and amendments barring spending on transgender health care. So now what she's saying is that she feels like when you speak out against the state of Israel, treatment towards the Palestinians, there seems to be much harsher criticism towards those politicians than the same Democrats who actually are anti-choice when it comes to a woman's right to choose, and those who are against the transgender health care. One more piece here I wanted to mention. Let me see. Oh, here we go. This piece right here. Jayapal on Monday said she also won't attend Herzog's speech. That's the president who's coming tomorrow, but denied she was engaging in a boycott. It's not a boycott. I look forward to listening to the speech, and I intend to do that as soon as I'm able. I just have a bunch of meetings that were present already. Sure. She just doesn't want to be criticized for saying she's going to have a boycott. Now, if you don't follow this account on Twitter, you should. It's @ZSquirrel. Made up a good point about what Human Rights Watch has been saying that backs up what Pramila Jayapal said. Now, Squirrel said, let me make this a little bit bigger. The Squirrel. Pramila Jayapal made the factual statement backed by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, and Israel's own human rights org, Bestem, that Israel is a racist state. Within hours, she retracted it. Dems and GOP united to smear her, and Dem leadership vowed total support to Israel forever. The entire political and media class across the ideological spectrum united to smear Jayapal as anti-Semitic for making a purely factual statement backed by every mainstream human rights organization. This is considered normal and totally fine. No cancel culture here. They all love it. They all fell into line so quickly. Rokana put out a statement. No, I love Israel. It's not racist. I love it. Please don't hurt me, Israel lobby. I love you. These people are so spineless and pathetic. And it's true. Look, quickly, just like that. They were so quick. They were one after another, by the way. If you were on Twitter yesterday, it was just one after another. They all just follow the marching orders. Nobody really thinks for themselves. They don't even really speak for themselves half the time. This is the problem with the two-party system. You think they're going there to represent you and fight for you. They're going there to join a team, and they have a boss, and that boss is telling them what to do. So this Squirrel account really hit it on. Richie Torres, Mondaire Jones, Hakeem Jeffries, the black faction of the Israel lobby immediately jumped on it. No, Israel, we love you. You own us. You're our masters. We love you so much. Please don't hurt us. Please don't take the crumbs they threw at us. It is sickening. And I've seen it over and over again. And by the way, you don't even see Richie Torres, Mondaire Jones, Hakeem Jeffries, you don't even see them fight that way for black people. and they're black. You don't see them all come to this defense when it's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Now, Ilhan Omar did stand up in defense of Pramila Jayapal. We spend too much time policing the language of black and brown women who speak out against oppression and not enough time ending the oppression of black and brown people. And this was the statement here from Pramila Jayapal. So she had this long statement here. One of the things that she mentioned here, I have always worked towards a two-state solution. The problem is, and this is the part that is often unsaid, is that even possible at this point in time? There are too many settlements. There are too many of them. Why are they still talking about a two-state solution when honestly, feasibly, it's not possible? That's the safe statement, by the way. The safe statement is to say the two-state solution. That's the safe bet. Now, something else happened. Today, apparently the House was all set to vote on legislation to basically swear that Israel is not racist or an apartheid state. Now, Ryan Grimm shared this on Twitter. Here's the entire resolution the House plans to vote on tomorrow, declaring that the United States will always be a staunch partner and supporter of Israel, and that Israel is not a racist or apartheid state. Here's the legislation here. See? Concurrent resolution expressing the sense of Congress supporting the state of Israel. You know what's interesting? Where's the legislation for black people? When Joe Biden became president, immediately they signed the anti-Asian hate crime bill. Where's the anti-hate bill for black people? Have they passed that anti-lynching bill yet? No? I didn't think so. It's everybody else but us. And I've been noticing this for a long time. Everybody else gets something except for us. This just cracks me up. It goes on to say, resolved by the House of Representatives that it is the sense of Congress that 1, the state of Israel is not a racist or apartheid state. 2, Congress rejects all forms of anti-Semitism and xenophobia. And 3, the United States will always be a staunch partner and supporter of Israel. Always? Always? What if they do something to one of our allies? We're still going to be a supporter? Is it right to say that we will always be a supporter? Hell, I can't guarantee I'll always support the restaurant down the street from me. I'm just going to keep it real. There's a Dollar Tree around the corner, but I can't always swear I will always support you. How can we make it always? There it is. So now Justice Democrats released a statement. Justice Democrats, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, and Jamal Bowman have all announced that they will not attend the Israeli President's Congress tomorrow. President's address to Congress tomorrow. What they're doing is right and a model for what progressives should be doing. Look at whose name is missing. AOC, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Jamal Bowman. Where is Ayanna Pressley? I told you it's always one. Didn't I tell you? It's always one. Goes on to say, and I'm going to say something about Jamal Bowman actually first before we go into the next part. Remember when DSA wanted to remove Jamal Bowman because he made that trip to Israel? Remember that? He made that trip to Netanyahu. Okay. Let's go on. Israeli President Isaac Herzog is coming to the U.S. during Israel's most right-wing government in recent history. How right-wing? High-ranking members of that government have voiced support for ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Attendance is complicity. So here's an example here. Smartridge says there's no Palestinian people, declares his family are the real Palestinians. This is really sad. This is from Middle East Monitor. Israel's extreme far-right national security minister pledged today to crush Palestinians one by one. Jesus Christ. You know, how can people turn a blind eye to this? Like, how can they do this? More than just rhetoric, this government's actions have immensely harmed Palestinians. Not only are they planning a massive illegal settlement expansion, stealing the land Palestinians live on, but have also conducted the largest military assault in the West Bank in 20 years. And here's examples here. Israel to announce plan for thousands of new settlement units in the West Bank. And this is what I was saying before. For the people who keep saying a two-state solution, how? There's way too many settlements now going on. Israel attacks Jenin in biggest West Bank incursion in 20 years. Like, it just... Perhaps compared to Netanyahu and the far right, Herzog may not seem bad enough to boycott, but his Islamophobic record speaks for itself. And really, this isn't about one person. It's about a country committing atrocities with our taxpayer dollars. But I mean, so this is the thing where I got to push back on Justice Democrats, though, because where was this same energy when you had members of the squad who were voting in such a way that goes against your very principles in the first damn place? Don't just show up to, cheer them on when they're doing the right thing. Hold them accountable when they're doing the wrong thing. So much money, man. Despite the Israeli government's blatant anti-Palestinian racism, we continue to send Israel $3.8 billion in unconditional military funding. And when progressives like Jayapal stand up for Palestinians, they're condemned by our party's leaders. Yes, they are. And thank you so much for proving my point once again that you cannot reform the Democratic Party. Remove the leaders, insert new leaders, you'll have the same problem. Because the parties are controlled by Wall Street. That's why I continue to say, if you don't remove money from electoral politics, this is always going to be an issue. You can swap out the leaders. You can change the president. You can change the Speaker of the House. It doesn't matter. They're all bought and paid for because the parties that they're in are bought and paid for. So you either get in line or they get rid of you. Instead of capitulating to super PACs like AIPAC, these Justice Democrats are sending a strong message by skipping the Israeli president's speech to Congress. We need to be consistent in standing up for human rights here and abroad and not give any country or ally a pass. Does that hold well with Ukraine? Because Justice Democrat says any country, any ally a pass. Does that mean also not voting to support to send billions of dollars to Ukraine? You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. But I'm very, very curious as to why Ayanna Pressley's name is not on that list. So for all you folks here in Eastern Massachusetts, if she is your representative, maybe you should write to her and ask her why she's not on that list, why she's not joining the rest of them. Now, in reference to that piece of legislation, Rashida Tlaib did have a speech in reference to supporting not just Jayapal, but also the Palestinian people. Of course, Rashida Tlaib is Palestinian, so keep that in mind. when they make these statements that they make that like Israel has a right to exist, when they make these statements that like we will support them forever and align with them forever, you never see them come out this way in support of the Palestinian people. The way that our government behaves when it comes to this conflict with Israel and Palestine, they act like the Palestinians aren't even people. And it is very disgusting. And if they're okay with treating them that way, for those of you watching, if you're Black, let's just remember it wasn't too long ago they were treating you that way. That's why people like Hakeem Jeffries and Richie Torres, that's why they get on my nerves. That's why I can't stand, they drive me crazy because they just following the money. They're just political careerists. They're not really there to stand up and fight for anything. They don't care about anything but money and their career. They're protected. They where they need to be. But Rashida Tlaib seems to be one of the few that's willing to speak out about it. She got to stand up for her people. That's her people. And I don't even know how she can sit there, because if it was me, I don't understand how she can sit there and just listen to the statements and the comments and the way that people just talk about the Palestinians as if they don't even matter. And that's your people. How would you feel? Let's get into it.
Hear consistently that the people touting about like, oh, this is bipartisan support here. Well, don't forget, this body, this Congress supported the South African apartheid regime, and it was bipartisan as well. But you don't have to take it from me to understand the racism of an apartheid government. Let's take a moment just to hear Israeli government's own politician in their own words. Direct quotes, not mine. Current Prime Minister Netanyahu on his policies towards Palestinians, quote, beat them up, not once, but repeatedly, beat them up until it's unbearable. And said that Israel must, quote, crush Palestinian hopes for a fully sovereign state. One of the former defense ministers said Palestinians are, quote, beasts, and they are not human. He's talking about people like my grandmother, Mr. Speaker.
Same thing they said about Black people.
How about former Justice Minister who said they should go, as should the physical homes in which they raise the snakes. Otherwise, more little snakes will be raised there. How about another former defense minister said, quote, those who are against us, there's nothing to be done. We need to pick and axe them and cut off their heads. Another quote, there is no such thing as Palestinian people. How is that racism at its core? Mr. Speaker, Israel's own president, who's
the gentlelady's time has expired. Does the gentleman from New York reserve or yield?
I yield the gentlelady 30 seconds.
Israel's own president, Herzog, who's going to come before Congress tomorrow, has long advocated against interracial marriages. Did you all know that? Do you care?
No, they don't care. They just want to keep their seats and fill their pockets. I hope everybody listening to this. Everybody listen to this. How many members that sit in the House and the Senate are in interracial relationships? How many of them?
Tomorrow has long advocated against interracial marriages. Did you all know that? Do you care? He said on the news segment, look it up. When he came to America, he said, quote, encountered something that I call an actual plague. I saw my friends' children married and coupled with non-Jewish partners. Israel is an apartheid state. The government is deeply problematic in the way that they are proceeding in the structure of oppression. This year, Mr. Speaker, just like I speak up against injustices here in America, this is about speaking up
against violence. The gentleman's time has expired. This gentleman from New York,
Congress
yield
must stop
or reserve?
funding apartheid.
Yield back the balance.
In reference to the apartheid issue, I wonder how South Africa feels about this. What would South Africa say in reference to what's happening in Israel? So based on what you've seen, let's see how people answered this poll. Let's go ahead and put the poll results up here, Eric. I'm curious to see. Was Jayapal right to retract her statement? 575 votes. Uh-oh, it's changing. Okay. 9% said yes. 66% said no, and 26% said you are not sure. Interesting. But I'm curious. I'm curious to know, How would South Africa respond to this? And to whether or not it's apartheid? Thank you for the super chat, Adam. Google JFK Battle of the Letters Ben Gurion. JFK said if Israel doesn't end nuclear program, U.S. support for Israel will be in serious jeopardy. 1963. I'll have to check that out. Interesting. Teresa, supporting Black people would be a good thing. They don't do good things. Thank you for the super chat, Jessica. They are passing laws that dictate truth to us. BS. The U.S. and Israel are one and the same. The U.S. with killing off Native Americans and taking the land. Bingo. Ding, 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 ding. Oceana said, I live in Seattle. Jayapal has a track record of net negative on making the right decisions. Devotion Orange says, I forgot that I would like some APAC money. Oh, I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Yay. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. New talking point, y'all. Next time you all get flack for Perot, Nader, and others, all of them got 0 electoral college votes every time they ran. So stop telling us percentage of votes they got, because that don't count. That's a good point. Thanks so much for that, Roger. And thank you for this tip, Linda. I'm in Jayapal's district and follow her vote. She does not live up to her stated principles and has cast some very bad votes. When pressed at a town hall by someone in Seattle for Assange about freeing Julian, she agreed that he should be freed and gave the questioner the card of her assistant. His calls have not been returned, and Jayapal has never responded to my emails or phone calls about this. Well, there you go, guys. That answers that question. Thank you for the tip, Roger. How can Dems before supporting Israel and Ukrainian and Nazis at the same time? Maybe that's what we should all ask them while holding up that 2018 letter. The UN should come in, round up all those settlements and move them out. Just don't send their racist ass here. The U.S. is already racist enough. Put them in the last unsettled continent, Antarctica. They can have it all to themselves. Don't be surprised if BRICS does it. Oh, that's interesting. And thank you for this as well. I want to remind you about the time I told you when my cousin told me he knew Hakeem Jeffries through his uncle, Professor Leonard Jeffries, who was a Black Studies professor back during the Afrocentric days of the late 80s and early 90s. He got in trouble and did not take it back for speaking in Albany, SUNY about how Jews were involved in the slave trade. He never walked it back. Matter of historical record. That is interesting.